Hey everyone, it's Kathy Koliakova with peppermarketing.com, and I want to say thank you for sticking around for a little bit of a break I had with my newsletter system. This is getting out a few days late, but I have a really good excuse for it too. If you haven't heard already, and you probably have, my dog Pepper broke my arm. She actually fractured my elbow in 3 places by running through the house and knocking me off my feet and onto an extremely sturdy coffee table. And when that happened, I put into place a plan that I've had in place for years, what I call my backup plan. And I call it the backup bus plan, actually. So it's a situation where, what if I got hit by a bus? What would happen and what would go on? And I wanted to share some tips on that with you today, because I have really and truly discovered over my 12 years in business that there are a lot of people, in particular, I'm talking to you guys that are service-based business owners. You are probably solopreneurs, or like me, you might have a small team of people that work with you. And you service customers. You have clients that you do work for. You have students in your courses and your programs. And there are people that are relying on you for maybe their education or maybe for their business to run. And I don't think sometimes we take that as serious as we should. I think what happens sometimes is people get their business going, things get running and happy, and you forget that if you were to drop dead, sorry for the harshness of it, today, that would really affect your client's business, their life, and their livelihood. And I think it's very important for us as service-based business owners, small business people, solopreneurs, small teams, to have some sort of disaster or emergency backup plan, whatever you want to call it, and have it in place. And a lot of people think that it's a hard and a complicated thing to put into play. And I did a little research for this, and I will tell you that what I found online is really geared for corporate, larger companies, people with teams and divisions. And it's not what we need as service-based businesses to manage for 2 weeks if needed, if there's an accident, or to deal with something that might come up very unexpectedly. Your child gets sick, your child gets hit by a bus, you get hit by a bus. Your dog Pepper takes you out in the living room and you end up having surgery on your arm and you're going to be out for a bit. These are situations that nobody will ever plan for, but they could happen any day and any time. And you have to be ready for it, because you owe it to your clients and to your students and to your customers to have a plan in place to take care of them if you aren't able to take care of yourself. So I'm going to cover over some of the top things that I have in place and try to explain to you what we have set up. It's very simple and very easy, but I think it's something that a lot of people really miss when they have their businesses running. And I have to tell you right now, you can't do it, because other people have to keep their lives running too. And if your life stops, or your business or ability to do your business stops unexpectedly for whatever reason, there's only so long someone else will continue to remain loyal to you and let you continue on not doing any work, because their life has to continue. So let's cover over a few of the steps and what we had in place. And I'll tell you one of the reasons that I really think this is important. So for me, I am someone who can actually say that they have fired somebody who was in ICU. It is not something I'm proud of. It's not something I'm really happy to say, but I do it as an example of what happened because that person had no backup plan. I had hired somebody to come into my business to be a project manager, to start helping me manage client work and client meetings and client strategy and get things going. And what happened was, the very first day that she was supposed to show up for work and meet with me, she didn't show. And this was about 5 or 6 years ago. And okay, so she didn't show. I called, I emailed, no answers. And then I went in and sent an email, of course, checked, looked on Facebook, tried to look online to see what I could find or not find about what was going on. And there was nothing. There was no hints. There was no tips. There was nothing that would give me any pause to understand why this person just didn't show up. So I sent a few emails for a few days. by the end of the week, my business had to go on. Now, you have to understand, at this point, the morning that that person was supposed to start, she already had an email account with my company. She had access to information, to client projects. She was entrenched in there because we'd gone through a whole onboarding process, signing up, working together, everything, and she didn't show. So by the end of that week, I determined my business was at risk, and I shut everything down, and I sent an email and said, I'm really sorry. I'm not happy to do this. I don't know where you are, but my business has to continue and you're fired. And I will tell you, it was the worst feeling of my life, I will say. It was not a fun thing to do. And about 2 weeks later, I finally got a reply from her from one of my first emails that said something like, are you okay? And essentially what had happened was she had fallen on the steps, on her front steps of her house on the ice, had slipped, cracked her head, had passed out, had been in ICU. I think she might have actually been in a coma for a few days or something. I can't recall the situation, but she was in ICU for several days. And she had no plans in place. Nobody was answering her phone or checking her emails or nothing. So I had, as her client, I had no idea what was going on. I felt horrible about it. But in the end, she was in a situation where she now couldn't take on any more work. She had to recover and recuperate and couldn't continue with the job. But if she had wanted to, at that point, I had moved on because it was now 3 weeks later. My business had to continue. And this is something that as business owners, you have to remember. Your business is not just you. It's about your customers and what you offer them and what you do for them. And their businesses rely on you. So you have to make sure you have a plan in place that will help them if they need the help to continue when you can't help them. So let's cover over a couple of these tips that I want to share with you about what I have in place. And I will let you know that within an hour of me getting into the emergency room in absolute and utter pain, and now limiting myself, it's been a week and a bit now. My hair is not the same. My makeup's not the same. I'm not able to fully dress myself yet. So you're getting a little rundown or a little lower down version of Kathy here today. But I really wanted to share this message. But the reality is everything that I could do a week and a half ago, I can't necessarily do today. I'm very limited with what's going on with my arm. So within the hour, Marco, my husband, had called Patty on my team, who then sent out an email to all of my clients and all the team, letting them know, I'm out for the day. We don't know what's going on. We'll keep you updated, kind of thing. I knew it was pretty bad. And so that's why we sent that right away, because I knew it would impact them probably for more than just a day. If it was just a little day thing, a small in and out of emerge, I would never have sent it then. We knew, I think actually, by the time we sent it, we knew I'd broken my arm and my elbow in 3 places and was going to have surgery. So that changes the game altogether. So that all gets sent out. And then there were certain things that were done. And that's what I'm going to tell you what we did. For most of you guys that are solopreneurs, small business, service-based businesses, you don't have a large team. You don't have divisions, corporate. A lot of it might just be you. So I'm going to give you some of the tips that we put into place that will fit anybody, even if you're a one-person operation and don't have anybody else working with you on a regular basis. I'm going to give you some ideas on what to do. I kind of call this the continuity of services, a basic level. So this is something that you should have in place when you might be looking at a short term, like under 2 weeks out of operation, basically, and not able to operate, not able to do your work, or at a very, very limited. Like right now for me, today, I'm probably going to do this video, get this stuff off to my VA to get produced. I have a meeting a little bit later today with my accountability group, and that's all I'm probably going to be able to handle, just because there's still a lot of pain going on and other stuff that's happening because of the accident. So you have to understand, even if you're going to be limited like that, that might be a situation where you have to get this into play. So the biggest thing that I could tell you, the first thing that you have to do and get is a trusted source. In my case, I have 2. So I have my husband, Marco, and then I have my virtual assistant, Patty. God love her. Patty is one of the best people. She's worked with me for over 10 years now, I believe. And she knows a lot about my business, and she's a very trusted source for me. Now, I'm lucky because she isn't entrenched in my business, and she knows a lot of the clients. She knows a lot of the situations. She works a lot with them, the team, everybody. That's fabulous. But if you're not like me and you have that and it's just you really need to find a trusted source of some sort. It could be your spouse. It could be a friend or a colleague. One thing that I think every person in business should have is an accountability partner. And maybe that accountability partner is your trusted person to make those initial contacts. So you have to have somebody you designate as your trusted person, or two people. And I do like to have two because not to get really morbid or anything, but what if you and your spouse have an accident together? Your spouse is no longer able to act as your trusted source. So you have to look at having an outside person that can do this and make these calls or emails if needed when you need it. So that's the first thing. You have to have that trusted source person. Then you need to have a record of the people that you need to reach and a way to reach them. So this can be as simple as having like a Google Doc with the client's names and the emails and the phone numbers and your team names and emails and phone numbers. Whoever is going to have to know that there's a problem and going on, that your trusted source person is going to reach out to, that should be in there. And it isn't necessarily something that you have to share with them ahead of time, but they have to have access. So you have to go on the assumption that your trusted source finds out you were in a car accident with your husband. They know where to go to get that document to reach out to the clients and the people. So you guys have to have sort of a whole setup for this. First part is having the information to reach the people. The second part of that is an action plan of what should happen. So should they call them? Should they email them? Should they, send a blind copy email? Does it go from them? Do they have access to your email so that they can go in your email and say, hey, everybody, this is Jane. I'm messaging you for Kathy. She's had a bad accident. I'm not sure what's going on yet. I will keep you posted. You can reach me at blah, 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 blah. So that kind of stuff is something you want to have ready in place. You need to have that list of names and contacts and people to reach and what you want to happen. And you have to prepare for it as if you are not going to be able to have any say in telling the person, I need you to reach out to these people. Okay. In my case, I have a client list in my email system. And so Patty just logs in my email because she has access to that. So again, that might be something your trusted source has to be given, or a place where to go and get it. So you have to make sure that these records are kept up to date. That's important as well. I did notice that I had a couple past clients in my list. It was okay, but I did have to go in and update that afterwards. So she went to my email, did a blind copy email to all of these people and let them know what was going on and gave them her name and information so that they could reach her. So that's sort of a bit of the action plan. The action plan might have to go a little bit deeper though, depending on what kind of work you do for people and your relationship with them and what's going on with what you need to do with them. So it really depends on that level of what kind of continuity of service you need to offer them if something were to happen to you to incapacitate you from working for them for a little bit. So you have to make sure that you've got some sort of plan and you know what will happen to them and that they know too, because your trusted source is going to let them know what's going to happen and what's going to go on. So that's the third thing that you need to have, is sort of an action plan for this. Now, if you're one of those solopreneurs that has nobody and no team, this may be where you need a partnership or some sort of relationship with somebody that could potentially help out if needed. Or you have to make sure that you have something set up so that your clients know and understand what the limitations might be should something happen. I'm not saying you have to go into real detail with this when you hire clients and start working with them or when they hire you, but I think everybody owes that to their clients so that they understand what happens if you can't be working. How does their work get done? So it's important that you have that kind of setup and that you have something in place and everybody understands what might happen. And then what might happen might just be a delay of work, the client looking after it themselves for a week or so. But this is where, okay, what happens now if it gets into more than 2 weeks? And I'll talk about that in a minute. The fourth thing that you need to have is account access. So this is something a lot of people don't think about, is what happens if you should have a situation where you're incapacitated, you can't access anything, you know, you're in ICU, you fell on the steps and you're in there and you can't do anything. You can't get on your phone, you can't get on your computer, you can't access logins or anything. So there needs to be some sort of account access that is going to be needed as part of the action plan that your trusted source has access to in order to be able to help if needed or get along with if needed. And this is something I actually encourage people that are small business owners to have on their own as well, that their spouse or family will know and have this kind of account access to, so that in the event of your death, they can go in and actually close accounts and shut those down. I had a situation in 2012 where a client of mine passed away. And a few months later, his wife reached out to me. I was actually the only person that had access to his Facebook, to his social media, to all of those accounts. And she actually hired us to go in and close them all and shut them down because she had no idea how to do it. So it's something, you know, that everybody should plan for in life, is with all of the online accounts that you might have in the world today, you should have a list of these accounts and access so that your family or someone afterwards, if the worst were to happen, can go in and shut those down for you. So Facebook has an option for people to let Facebook know that someone has passed away and they can do something with that. Not all of these systems and accounts do. So it's really important that you have some sort of account access that's not only going to cover you, but that is a way for your trusted source or whoever's going to help with that action plan to go in and access things and deal with them and manage them while you're unable to do the work that you need to do. Now, that to me is the basics of a short-term, you know, backup plan, emergency plan, disaster plan, if you get hit by that bus that takes you out plan. That to me is the basics that anyone would need to have or have set in place when it comes to your business and what would happen if you couldn't work for a week or 2 weeks, that type of thing. But if it goes for more than 2 weeks, you're going to have to think about a few other things. So when you're looking at more than 2 weeks and you're getting up closer to a month, you're looking at things like, how do your clients pay you? How do they get invoiced? How do you pay your monthly bills if some of them are done manually? How do you deal with paying your household bills if it's needed, if you're the one that takes care of that? So these are some of the things that you have to have in place as well. And sort of on the financial side of it, you'll want to look at having, you know, number one, do you have backup signing authority on your bank account? For instance, my husband can sign on my corporate bank account if needed. So he can go in there and sign a loan should he need to do that. Again, if you don't have a spouse that can do that, somewhere along the line, you need to look at some way to set things up so that things can be dealt with afterwards. And I know there's a lot more. If you're a lawyer, you probably get a lot more ideas on how to do this. But this is for some basic pieces of it. You know, you need to make sure that people know where your bank account is, how to access it, how to pay your bills if needed. Maybe you have, like for me, I have a lot of my standard monthly accounts that I use in my business are paid by my credit card, but I have to go in and make my credit card payment every month to pay for those. So having a situation set up so that that happens is something that you have to look at too, in my opinion. And this is only, again, you know, if you're talking 2 weeks, it's probably not a big deal. Once you get over 2 weeks, you want to look at having a little more in-depth plan in place for stuff like that. Paying suppliers, how they get into all that. And then the different accounts they'll need to access for that. So maybe it's as simple as having your login to your bank account so that somebody can help you and make those payments to those bills. Again, you want a trusted source to be doing this because there's a lot of trust that you need to build between somebody getting access like that. But it's important that you do that too. So you want to make sure that if something happens in your emergency goes over that 2 weeks, that you can deal with that. The other thing you're going to have to think about if you are solo and I'm lucky I have a team. They do most of the work for the clients. I could probably survive a 2-3 month issue or a problem where I couldn't work all the time or full time. But if you're on your own, that could be a real big problem. And you need to be ready for the fact that your clients may not be able to wait for you. Your students, if you're supposed to be delivering new content in your courses every month, may not be able to wait for you. So you also have to be prepared that should something happen that goes for a longer term, even for a shorter long term, like not forever, but for 3 months or so, that things might drastically change in your business. Because as I've said before, those other business owners, your clients, as much as they love you and they might have worked with you for years and love you and would never work with anybody else, at some point they'll probably have to say, I can't do this anymore and I need to find somebody that can. So that to me is sort of like the real longer term vision of looking at it. But it is something that I do think you have to really figure out and make sure that you have. So to wrap up, for your very basics for a backup emergency disaster plan for a service-based business owner, you want to have your trusted source. That's number one. You want to make sure that you have the records of where you can access the people that need to know what's going on. So where can that trusted source reach out to everybody? You want to have an action plan so that the trusted source knows what will need to happen. And you may potentially want to have an option where you let clients know, hey, should everything ever happen to me, this is who will reach out to you and what they'll do, kind of thing. Let them know with that. And I think for the most part, most clients will be very impressed if you let them know that when you start working with them together. Or if you change it along the way here and start setting it in place. And then you want to have that account access that's going to be needed for whatever pieces of the action plan that someone is going to need account access to do that to. This to me is all really important as a small business owner. I believe we owe it to our clients and to those that we work with to have some sort of plan in play like this so that if something happens, you can still manage and move forward. One of the things that happened to me last Wednesday was I had just been working with hiring a new virtual assistant for the team. So I had talked to her on Tuesday. Accident happened Wednesday morning. But what happened was she got an email from Patty letting her know as well what was going on. And then I would have to cancel our onboarding meeting the next day or our meeting the next day and change it. But in the meantime, I had told Patty, because I was able to tell her on the phone, could you please send her our team policy document? I'll get the contract off to her and get it done and signed. And Patty actually got her all done, set up and onboarded. And one of the things she said to me when we had a quick call earlier this week was she was impressed by how, even though I had essentially been taken out of the business this week, I was still able to have people go through and continue on and help her. And she's already started doing the work for the client that I needed her to do and that I brought her on to do. So those kinds of backup systems, really simple ones. I mean, there's all sorts of more technical ones, getting your computers backed up and having backup hard drives and all that. There's a lot more involved in this. What if your house had a fire? But for me, this is about continuity of service to our clients. And I think having these 4 basic steps in place with the optional number 5 one of what happens if it's a longer time that you're out of business or out of action in your business, what would you do? So to me, those are the 5 steps you want to have in place. I really hope this has helped you figure out things that are going on. My voice has gotten a little hoarse as I've gone on in this call. I'm sorry about that. And I hope to be back on track with you a little bit more on video probably for a while, because I'm not sure when this beast is going to be fully off. I go to the surgeons next week to get all the staples out. I think the 16 pins and the plates that they put in my arm to keep them there are not coming out. They get to stay there for life. But it is a good reminder to everybody how to have a backup plan in place. And I will see you more with some more videos. And you can always find more about me on our website at pepperitmarketing.com. Have a fabulous day, everybody. And I will see you, like I said, probably on video quicker than you would have expected normally with me. Have a great one. Bye-bye.